Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to dive deep into the world of user experience design. UX. It's kind of like this invisible force that's behind pretty much every single piece of tech we use every day.
Okay, think about this for a second. Have you ever used an app that it just clicked? Everything was right where you thought it should be, super intuitive, and then you've probably had the opposite experience, right? The one where you're so frustrated you just want to launch your phone into orbit? Yeah, that difference, that feeling, that's UX in a nutshell.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to figure out what user experience actually is. Then, we'll clear up the confusion between things like UX and UI. After that, we'll get into the 5 core elements of UX, and finally, we'll see how it all comes together in the real world.
All right, first up, what is user experience? It really goes beyond just the screen. It's all about how something feels to use. At its core, UX is really just that, the feeling a person gets when they're interacting with a product or a service. I actually love this simple way of breaking it down. You can think of user experience as a mix of 3 key ingredients. First, you've got the look. Is it visually appealing? Then there's the feel. Is it actually enjoyable to interact with? And finally, the usability. Does it work? Is it useful? You really need all 3 to create a great experience. So that simple formula really helps us understand the official definition, which is that UX is the whole process of making products that give people meaningful and relevant experiences. And what's super important here is that it's not just about that single moment you're tapping on the screen. Nope, it covers the entire journey, from the very first time you hear about a product, to downloading it, to making it a part of your life. Okay, let's tackle a big one: UX, UI, and usability. These terms get thrown around all the time, right? And a lot of people use them like they mean the same thing, but they don't. So let's clear up that confusion right now.
So first up, let's talk about usability. The easiest way to think about it is that usability is just one part of UX. It's super focused on function, right? Like, can the user actually do what they came to do easily and efficiently? But user experience, well, that's the whole shebang. It's way broader. It includes usability, for sure, but it also brings in emotions, satisfaction, and just the overall value a person feels they're getting.
And then there's UI, user interface. This is probably the most common mix-up. This table lays it out perfectly. UI is all about the looks. It's the colors, the typography, the buttons, basically everything you see. It's the presentation. UX, on the other hand, is about the functionality and the flow. It's how the product actually works for you. So here's the key takeaway. UI is a component of UX, but UX is the entire experience from start to finish.
So that leads to the big question. How do you actually build one of these great user experiences? Well, I can tell you it's not by just jumping in and designing pretty screens. Not at all. There's a structured blueprint for this, and it's called the 5 elements of UX.
And here they are. I love this visual because it shows you exactly how it works. Think of it like building a house. You've got these 5 layers, and you start with the abstract foundation at the bottom, the why, and you build your way up to the concrete stuff at the top, the what it looks like. And here's the really important part. Every single layer relies on the one right below it. You can't just pick out paint colors before you even laid the foundation, right? Same idea here. It forces you to build from the ground up.
Let's make this real with an example. Imagine we're building a food delivery app. Okay, bottom layer, strategy. We have to ask, why are we even building this thing? Well, the answer is to help hungry users get food easily and to help the business make money. Simple. Now, based on that strategy, we move up to scope. What are we going to build? We decide on features like a search bar, filters for cuisine, maybe some order tracking. Got it? Okay, next layer up is structure. How is all that stuff organized? We decide to group restaurants by category, like Italian, Mexican, etc. Then we get to the skeleton. This is the layout. It's where we decide where the search bar actually goes on the screen, where the buttons live. And then, and only then, do we get to the very top, the surface. This is the visual design, the yummy-looking pictures, the brand colors, the nice fonts. See how every single step is built on the last one? It's a logical flow.
So those 5 elements are our blueprint, our map. But how do you actually use that map in the real world? Well, that's where the UX design process comes into play.
Now, the most important thing to get from this diagram is that UX design is not a straight line. It's not a one-and-done kind of thing. It is a continuous cycle. You start with research to really understand your users. Then you design a solution, maybe a wireframe or a prototype. Then, and this is critical, you test it with actual users. Then you build it, but look at that big repeat arrow. That's the magic. You're always learning, always going back, and always making it better.
So, why does all this matter? Why go through all this trouble? Well, because if you don't, it's so easy to just start with the fun stuff, the visuals, the surface layer, and completely forget about the foundation. This whole process, this framework, it makes sure you don't build a beautiful car that has no engine. It gets everyone on the same page, the designers, the developers, the business folks, and keeps them all focused on what really matters, solving a real problem for a real person.
So, I'll leave you with a little challenge. Next time you're using your absolute favorite app, the one you use every day, just stop for a second. Try to look right through the pretty surface. See if you can spot the skeleton, the layout, and then try to imagine the structure underneath that, and the scope, and maybe even guess what the original strategy was that started it all. It's kind of cool when you start to see it.